It's this incident late in the second half which cost the Knights the services of Darren Albert for at least a month.
Albert hurt his shoulder in that tackle too.
Another broken collarbone was the diagnosis, and while it's the only physical reminder of Saturday night's game, a bruised ego is the only other thing that needs to be healed.
Yeah, we've got to regroup and really sort of reassess, the degree of commitment we have for the remainder of the season. We need to win at least another 8 games.
With 11 matches left, it's a big ask, but as long as the Knights can control the ball, really has no doubt the Knights will meet the challenge.
No matter what team you're playing, if you subject yourself to pressure, then the opposition will capitalise on it.
Really will tomorrow name the team to tackle St George. Saturday night's clash starts a tough 6 weeks. The Knights then battle Canterbury, Canberra, Brisbane, Norths and Manly. Also looking for improvement, the Newcastle Falcons. Losses to South East Melbourne and Sydney at the weekend saw the team drop to 9th standing on the ladder. The Falcons meet Illawarra in their next appearance on Friday. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
The Hunter Street Mall is fighting for survival with competition from suburban shopping centres and claims of a higher crime rate in the CBD. A $2 million facelift may be the answer.
It's wonderful to see that the architects have got all this in mind, and we desperately need it in the mall, and we're happy for it to be started.
Tenders are being called for the first stage between Brown and Wolfe Streets with extra paving, kiosks, new security lighting, even computer-controlled self-cleaning toilets. Council expects to put in more than $860,000. Local retailers are being levied in special rates to make up the rest. Council has also confirmed funding for a new netball pavilion at National Park.
We're really delighted that at last somebody's got some sense in this town, and hopefully we'll be up and rolling shortly.
Meanwhile, Del Saunders, wearing another hat as the chairperson of the Matara Committee, was also celebrating the resignation of Councillor Margaret Henry from that committee.
I think it's a blessing, quite frankly, and now the Matara Committee will be able to get on and do the work in the city that and provide a festival that the city wants.
Councillor Henry had been calling for big changes to the operation and control of this year's Matara. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It was dark and the rain was falling steadily when this white Camry headed north veered onto the wrong side of the road just before 5:30 this afternoon. The car smashed almost head-on into a red Corolla heading south near the corner of Scenic Drive. Both drivers were trapped for more than half an hour as rescuers worked to free them from the wreckage. The male driver of the red car, a security guard, was taken to John Hunter Hospital suffering serious injuries. The female driver of the other car was in a stable condition. The accident caused huge traffic delays as police were forced to close City Road and redirect traffic through Adamstown. Emma Ossian, NBN News. Professor Graham told the Newcastle Business Club luncheon that more interaction is needed between Newcastle University and the community. Ms Graham says it's important the university does not cut itself off from outside influences. She also argued the need for stronger international ties,
which might lead to the University of Newcastle having ventures overseas which are slightly more substantial to the ventures which we currently have.
One plan is to establish a branch campus at a country in the Asia Pacific. Professor Graham also said the predicted government budget cuts will have a major impact on the university, but said it's important the management approaches any changes with an open mind.
If the other universities are in the same position as we are, our challenge is to have the more creative response so that we can stay ahead of the game.
Army personnel, police, councillors and the local community paid their respects to the 18 soldiers who were tragically killed last week. From the chaplain, there was no attempt to explain the devastating loss, just words of support for those left behind.
In grieving for our comrades, we should remember that it is their families and loved ones who have the most difficult burden to bear.
Lieutenant Colonel Filewood from Newcastle relayed messages from the Queen and the Australian Army's Chief of General Staff.
The price paid by those who died or were injured is a sign to our nation that Army's reputation as a tough and effective fighting force is hard won.
The service was about maintaining strength and belief amidst tragedy. Some members of the congregation wept as they thought of those who lost their lives so suddenly. After the soldiers' hymn, sung to the strains of Waltzing Matilda, those who had died were named before a final farewell.
It was time to relax today for the New South Wales players. This is the end of a long season. 23 games, including a British tour, the Super 12, interstate clashes and the odd touring game.
It's been very, very hectic. I guess we want to finish on a good note.
Tonight's game against the Canadians is a big test for Waratah winger Alastair Murdoch. Dropped from the Australian side, it's his last chance to prove the selectors wrong at the top level this year.
I hope to have a very good game and put some pressure back on the guys who are in the Australian team now.
Back at Marathon Stadium and from a distance, the Canadian goal kicker looks a little like a famous Newcastle Knight.
Have you ever heard of Andrew Johns?
Unfortunately, I haven't. No, I haven't.
He can kick a bit.
I'm sure he can. I'm sure he can. Well, if you thought I was him, that's not such a bad praise.
5'8" Bob Ross will be hoping to get close to Andrew's consistency on the hallowed turf tonight. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Maitland Post Office has been an imposing and unchanging part of the Hunter landscape since it was built in 1881. Inside, though, it's a different story. Contractors have moved on site to give the interior of the post office a facelift, with plans to convert the space into a new style post shop. It's taken 18 months for the project to get the green light. The Heritage Commission and City Council both concerned about protecting the building's historic integrity. The period mouldings will all stay, the cedar counter timbers set aside to be recycled so all the timber fittings match. But the makeover isn't entirely restricted to the inside. Australia Post believes it's time the old post office clock was refurbished, a $20,000 project that's also due to get underway soon. Australia Post has shifted its Maitland operations into temporary premises in Bourke Street until the new post shop is ready in about a month. And a change for another heritage building with the old TAFE College in High Street up for sale. Vacant since the Carr government scrapped a coalition plan to make it the Housing Department regional headquarters, the building has attracted the interest of a number of potential buyers. Tenders close on Friday with a decision likely next week. Ian Cameron, NBN News.
Cats may cop curfews, desexing and microchip registration implants. Their owners stiff fines for not complying with what may soon be new laws to control pet ownership.
Domestic pets, cats and dogs, are accountable for about 90% of the total problems that we become involved in, and cats would take a good 50% of that. So, 45% of the overall picture would be relative to cats.
The RSPCA supports many of the proposals aimed at increasing the well-being of animals and the responsibility of pet owners for the care of them.
But I just foresee that there will be probably delays in implementation because the councils to whom the onus is going to fall to police all of this are going to have some problems initiating it.
Most of the 30,000 animals put down throughout New South Wales each year can't be traced back to their owners.
The responsibility has to be placed fairly and squarely on the owner of that animal. Registration is a means of tracking that owner and making them accountable.
Since his teen years, 20-year-old Falcon Ben Pepper has been facing a dilemma: which way to head with his sport. You see, Ben was a handy golfer with a handicap of 5. He was making state squads and pro golf was a real option.
I was really keen on golf and I was keen to go further.
At 209 centimetres or 6 feet 10, he can give the ball a real whack. But golf was secondary to cricket. That was his real love. There were more state squads, but his back gave in and basketball took over.
He certainly has that potential to play for Australia, to succeed at any level that he wants to in the game.
Yesterday, Ben was named in a train-on squad for the under-23 national side. He's having a brilliant first year in the NBL, taking it to anyone who stands in his way.
You've got to hustle and play hard, so that means a few falls and that's what happens.
This is one athlete with the world at his feet. Is there any sport he isn't good at?
My tennis.
Tennis isn't much good?
No, that's a bit down, yeah. But I'm getting there.
Locals have known about the hunter's qualities for a long time, and it seems the rest of the state is starting to take notice. Last night, local tourist operators took out 10 of the 30 categories in the state awards for excellence in tourism.
Having an award gives you virtually a seal of approval, and it really means something.
The Hunter Resort at Pecolban won the award for motoring accommodation. Rafferty's Resort on Lake Macquarie took out the Tourist Development Project section. The Esplanade on Newcastle Beach was voted #1 for superior regional accommodation. Peppers and the Anchorage also were recognised. Tourism is a major industry for the Hunter region, turning over $558 million each year. Tourism also means good news for employment. In this next decade, it's expected 20% of all new jobs will come from the hospitality industries. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
This is the less glamorous side of cheerleading. It's cold, there's no crowd, and there's hours of practice ahead in this old surf club. Karen Cameron is the choreographer for Ablaze Dancing Promotions, which she helped to set up last year with the help of business student Tracy Wilson. They now have 20 cheerleaders in their team, most with a background in classical dance.
We put a lot of effort into our training each week. We probably train about 5 times a week, depends on our workload for the weekend. If we've got Falcons games, Workers Club and the nights, we have a lot of rehearsals and the girls work extremely hard.
They may not get the same recognition as the players or anything like the same pay, but they still have to perform at their peak in front of crowds of thousands.
There's a few girls that get a bit nervous before games and stuff, but that's understandable. If you haven't been out there and realised the atmosphere, you get a bit nervous.
Most of the performances go off without a hitch, although there is the occasional hiccup.
The upgrade of Warrnambool Airport has stirred up controversy amongst some local residents who are divided over the development. A group seeking to block the airport took its case to the Land and Environment Court, claiming a flora and fauna impact statement was flawed. This was thrown out of the court and the upgrade looks set to go ahead. Wyong Council was elated, saying Warrnambool would soon have one of the best regional airports in New South Wales. Mayor Tony Sheridan claimed the development would generate hundreds of jobs as well as boost tourism in the area. But plans have come to an abrupt halt after member for Wyong, Paul Crittenden, introduced a private members bill in state parliament which passed through the lower house. Mayor Sheridan says he is bitterly disappointed at the loss of potential jobs and says he is concerned about the message it will send to developers who may have been planning to invest in Wyong Shire. Amanda Bolger, NBN News. Sydney State School and TAFE teachers took the morning off yesterday. Classrooms in the country area were without teachers for 4 hours today. As teachers and students resumed lessons this afternoon, there was a walkout by teachers in Catholic schools in support of better pay and conditions. They've threatened to step up their campaign next term. The state teachers are fighting for a 12% salary increase. Strike action has been frequent and looks set to continue unless the state government caves in to demands. Teachers have been offered an immediate 4% pay rise as well as an added 3.1% increase next year, but teachers say this is not enough. The Teachers Federation says its claims will double to 24% if the case is arbitrated in the Industrial Relations Commission instead of being settled by negotiation. Meanwhile, one school not on strike today was Irrawang Primary at Raymond Terrace. Staff went out yesterday, so a planned Koori Day would not be disrupted. Aboriginal culture was the theme. Children dressed in colours of the flag were entertained by the Gateshead High Aboriginal dancers. They enjoyed other activities including storytelling, boomerang throwing and didgeridoo lessons. Students also sampled a Koori bush tucker lunch of wallaby, kangaroo and crocodile.
With only 3 wins from their 9 appearances this season, the Wildfires are in need of some spark. Recent good victories against Sydney Uni and Penrith have unfortunately been offset by heavy losses.
We can only look forward, and we've been playing well. I mean, last week was a bit of a hiccup, but we intend to get on with the job this weekend.
Looking to brush aside last week's loss, selectors have opted for form. One of the newcomers, number 8, Matt Trail.
I'd really like to contribute some way towards a victory this weekend. Southern District's one of those games that we're probably looking to win.
At Nelson Bay today, the future stars of rugby union were hard at it in the final day's play at the New South Wales Combined High Schools Championships. In the blue, Metropolitan West led 10-8 at half-time in the match with their southwest counterparts, the lead extended by goal kicker Tierney Muller early in the second term. Down but not out, the Green and Whites found something extra in the dying stages to win a thriller 15 points to 13. Meantime, round 12 of the Newcastle Rugby League's Tooheys Cup tomorrow, when West tackle the Marlins. In Sunday's matches, Waratah Mayfield hosts South Newcastle, Charlestown is at home to the Scorpions, competition leaders Lakes United meet Cessnock, while Maitland clash with Curry Workers. And in soccer, the Adamstown Rosebuds travel to Sydney on Saturday for their second round match against Blacktown. Jonathan Upton, NBN News.
Logging access, recreation access and forest preservation are among the issues being considered. While loggers have long argued that the timber industry is a vital part of the Australian rural economy, conservationists are adamant that the wilderness should be preserved. But now there's light at the end of the tunnel, with a new report on the usage of forests between the Victorian and Queensland borders. The Resource and Conservation Assessment Council says the proposal is good news for both sides. Mr Cranwell says for the first time both loggers and conservationists are trying to understand each other's perspective.
During our negotiation sessions, apart from all the good work that was done, we often got the comments that people were for the first time getting to know the opposition.
Amanda Bolger, NBN News.
"20 years ago, 8-year-old Mark Butch Pedersen fell through the ceiling of the Carrington Picture Theatre. He was chasing pigeons. The fall onto the concrete floor nearly killed him.
Well, they had no hope for him. I mean, he died 3 times. They called us into the hospital so many times saying, you know, he's not going to make it.
Mark did make it, however he suffered brain damage. He was in Sydney today helping a truckie mate pick up some beer kegs. His brother passed on some good news.
Hey Butch, you got your judgment today. You won your case. Nearly 900 grand.
The New South Wales Supreme Court awarded him $856,000. Justice John Dunford saying the theatre should have been locked so as to deny access to unauthorised persons. Mark sued the proprietors of the theatre at the time. The building now has different owners. The Pedersen family was celebrating today. They've been through some difficult years in Mark's adolescence.
He'd stab you, he'd go in these wild rages, and then he'd have fits and everything. He was really totally different.
He was quite dangerous.
Oh yes, we'd had to call the police on him millions of times.
Mark's condition has improved over the years. He's expected back to his Maitland home late tonight to a big party. Not just for the compensation, it also happens to be his 28th birthday. Peter Ryan, NBN News. It was controlled chaos at the cook-off at the Hamilton TAFE today. About 80 of the Hunter's best chefs and cookery apprentices were hard at work at the Restaurant and Catering Association's Awards for Excellence. The top chefs were given a mystery bag of foods and told to go and create a masterpiece. And the end results were just that. All this cooking is hard yakka, and for aspiring chefs like Matthew Wilson, when he's not working, the last thing he wants to do is cook. He eats out.
Knackers.
With tourism booming in the Hunter, the region is crying out for top quality cooks.
There's a shortage of chefs everywhere, and there's a shortage of good chefs.
Judges pored over the meals today in what must be a tough job. The winners of the different categories will be announced next month. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
Make Your Own Luck paid $13.10 and $4.10, so Stensible paid $2.60 and Kinski Time paid $2.40, the Quinella $50.40 and the Trifecta $718.50. At Muswellbrook, the 7th was a Class 1 sprint over 1,000 metres and a great result for bookies. Princely paid $17 and $3 even, Silver Spice second paying $1.60, Silver Cape third at $1.40, the Quinella $28.30 and the Trifecta $178.80.
A symbolic start to Donor Week, 150 red balloons spreading out across the sky. In the same way, blood from these donors will reach out to those in need. Last year, 120 people gave blood, and their small effort will have some huge results.
Every person that comes in here to donate can actually help save the lives or improve the quality of life for 3 people.
While the blood bank says it's not in crisis, to be really confident it needs 150 donations per day. Veteran Jack Jones has donated 286 times. That means he's given away all the blood in his body 17 times. And he says it's just not a problem.
It doesn't hurt, the needle doesn't hurt one little bit, it's just like a mosquito bite, that's all.
And if a mosquito bite is enough to deter you, the blood bank thinks the possibility of a free trip to Bali may well be enough to dull the pain. The 20 bus drivers were packing up their picket line possessions this evening after 4 days and nights camped in their cars and on the ground. Following negotiations with management, an agreement was signed late this afternoon and the placards packed away.
They will now be working under the appropriate award conditions, and we've resolved quite a number of other issues that weren't actually award related. They'll probably be more in line of improvements in communication, things of that nature.
While the details are confidential, workers say they're confident management will stick to the agreement, ending years of industrial bickering at the company.
We've had a win, but as I said, there's a lot of negotiations still to go on, and hopefully we can get a few more wins to add to this one. So.
Sid Fogg's charter and regular service runs will now go back to normal. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.